Welcome to Richard and Karl present Deep Space and Dragons. I'm Richard, but you already knew that.
And I am Karl, and I'm not sure if you knew that or not, because I didn't say anything up to this point.
That's reasonable. And I guess welcome to Deep Space and Dragons. You're over 100 episodes in, so if so, kudos. And if this is the first episode you listen to,
Immediate technical difficulties.
immediate technical difficulties?
Oh, you just cut out for a second there. I'm sure that's fine as being part of the podcast.
Oh, lovely. To be fair, though, since I've updated my setup and they can just hear this on the live recording, my mic is on a different line than it used to go through, so it's entirely possible that it only has technical difficulties to you.
Oh, yeah, that's possible.
Because technically my audio is going into the thingy-majigger. Very technical stuff. Me absolutely putting, on my resume being, oh yeah, I have knowledge recording. I record a podcast. I know recording technology, sure.
Very technical knowledge.
So, what's new with you, sir?
Well, okay, so, fair warning, this is gonna be a little bit dark.
Oh.
But.
Okay, I'm morbidly curious.
First things first. I call it 6 degrees of separation. The number doesn't really matter, but there's a theory that anyone, has a friend of a friend of a friend, and so on and so forth, that can connect them to anyone in the world. And the theory is that the number of connections it takes to connect any two people in the world is surprisingly small.
I'm going to need you to pause for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Attention viewers, if you're playing What is Karl Gonna Say Next bingo at home on your bingo card, good luck guessing where this is going. You may now resume.
So the theory is that number is surprisingly small, as in less than 10. So like
in work, the more you know,
up to 9 friends of a friend of a friend could connect you to, say, the president of India.
Reasonable.
Right. I mean, not that you'll ever actually be able to use those connections because they're kind of vague and tenuous, but
says you. I'm low-key internet famous.
Yeah. So, but see, part of the reason that I said this is going to be dark is because in 2022, a terrible tragedy happened. It was absolutely awful. There was a mass murdering spree in Saskatchewan. It's like the 6th largest murder spree in Canadian history, or something like that.
We really need to get around to getting that disclaimer installed that we're a parody a podcast and people shouldn't sue us. Please continue.
But interestingly enough, I personally have worked with several of that mass murderer's relatives.
That makes sense in Saskatchewan.
Well, I mean, just thinking about that, just for a second, it's like, I know that guy's relative, you know me, and then it's like, that opens this mass murderer up through 6 degrees of separation to, like, everyone in, a huge number of people in Ontario, and then from there it goes across the world, because Ontario has lots of international people, and it's like, it's crazy how few connections it takes to connect people to famous people or infamous people or whatever. But that's not really the point of the story. The point of the story is that one of these relatives of the mass murderer, he I'll call him Mr. Mustard.
Okay, Colonel Mustard.
So he started working, and he was in high school when he started working. Mm-hmm. And summer comes around, and so we're like, hey, what's your availability for the summer? And he's like, oh, I can't make more than like $300 a paycheck because I will mess with my grandma's Social Security. And I look at him, I'm like, okay, you do realize you could just like work full time and make more money in one paycheck than your grandma makes on Social Security for the month. Like,
yeah,
just work hours instead of trying to limit your hours so you don't mess with your Social Security. Like,
it's a whole
um,
thing. It's a whole thing. Our system has flaws. It's like when I recently learned that when you go to Services Ontario to apply for jobs, they put into the database how many people are searching for jobs because that can affect the number of people you can import as workers when people claim people aren't looking for jobs. So, like, our system is interesting to say the least.
well, in any event, the idea that he could just work and make more money than social assistants blew his mind and like changed his life. Like, it was, we as a business, we didn't really do anything special for him. We just hired a young kid, gave him hours, paid him reasonably. But for him, it was like this life-altering thing that was a stepping stone for him and his family to start getting out of poverty, and he could actually start to support his family. And quite honestly, he probably had too much responsibility for a kid his age, because like I said, he was still in high school, and then he was basically the breadwinner of his family. But
oh no, that must be terrible.
I'm just saying, I feel for young people who have.
Yeah, I'm still a firm believer in trying to make the world better for people after you. So instead of giving a soliloquy, I'm like, no, I just agree. Despite my sassiness, I do fully agree with that statement.
But so to us, he's a regular employee. To him, we're a lifesaver. And he works with us. He's a decent employee. He's a nice enough guy. But eventually, he has to like move somewhere else, and he can't work with us anymore.
If this story ends with him being a mass murderer,
no. But several years go by. I get a phone call that's someone complaining that their food is cold, and they're like, "Oh yeah, and I'm Mr. Mustard's grandma," and I'm just like, it really bugs me that the grandma, Mrs. Plum, will say,
yeah, good motif.
So Mrs. Plum, it really bugs me that after like well over a year of him not working with us anymore, that she throws around his name like it has some sort of weight. Like, again, to us, he was just an employee, and he hasn't worked there in years, and it's like, well, that's nice that you're Mr. Mustard's grandma, but like, that doesn't mean we're gonna give you a special service. Like, anyways, so I was actually slightly annoyed with Mrs. Plum.
So I'm going to give a hot take on that one before we get back to your story. As someone who's worked in academia the last 4 years, like I went in for a meeting yesterday and ran into like 3 people I just knew through like synthesis. And then I was meeting with my professor, and he's like, wait a minute, you're not a student anymore. Come to the back of the office and grab a coffee, because now you're just an employee. So we're chilling in the back of the office having a coffee, and then he's like, I'm like, I'll finish up my coffee. He ran out of time for a meeting. He's like, oh, just take the mug. It's a free giveaway mug anyway. So I'm just like leaving, walking out of the office, having like stolen / been gifted a mug. And where I'm going with this is like, I'm fine with people I've worked with years ago getting a special favor. That's fine. If it was Colonel Mustard directly being like, yo, it's me, Colonel Mustard, I'd absolutely give him a staff discount on a pizza. Or in my current life, give him a free mug from a department that no longer exists, because what are we going to do with that merch anyway? But it's when people try and claim other people's friendship as their status, where it's like, yeah, I would absolutely give redacted student I tutored who's now working as a tutor themselves a free thing if I have free things, sure. But tutor's uncle gets nothing, right? Like,
right.
Like, I get a free mug. Someone walking and be like, oh, I'm Richard's mom. Can I have a free mug? No, don't give my mom a free mug. She can earn her free mug.
But so probably another year passes. Get another phone call.
I'm still scared with your disclaimer, like how tragic the story's gonna get, but please continue.
Well, Well, so this time is Mrs. Plum, and she introduces herself like I should know who she is, even though I've only talked to her like twice in the past 3 years or whatever. Well, then she says that she's Mr. Mustard's grandma. I'm like, oh, Mr. Mustard. Well, how's he doing? Not good. He died.
Oh,
Yeah, and she called our store because, again, to us he was just an employee. To her and Mr. Mustard, we worked closely with him, and like I say, it was a life-changing experience. And I really had no idea what to even say to this person, because they're calling to be like, yeah, we know that you and your boss. Side note: he has decided that he wants to be called Angry Bird for the purposes of our podcast going forward.
yes.
I think
Excellent.
Emperor Palpatine would be a better name, but that's neither here nor there.
I mean, to be fair, if someone listens to our podcast and submits random questions, they can get mugs. But also, I appreciate them suggesting code words. Like, if someone listens to our podcast, like, actually, I'd like a code name. I strongly respect that.
Anyways, but so she's like, yeah, Mr. Angry Bird and his wife, and you worked with Mr. Mustard, and I just want to give you all the details around his funeral and viewing and service and whatnot, because you guys might want to come. And I'm like, yeah, that's tragic. I take down all the information. Looking back, I realized I don't know if it's appropriate to ask how they died. I don't know, but like, but I didn't even ask what happened.
Thanks to the power of my autism, I absolutely would have asked how they died, because I don't have the ability to read that kind of social interaction.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Is that actually inappropriate to ask how?
I think so. Like, out of the moment, it's like, it's weird, because for me, I've like absolutely had people like, I don't know if anyone's ever actually directly asked me that obvious question. So it's like,
right.
Like, it's like, how'd your dad die? I'm like, well, read the story in the Globe and Mail. But like, people don't normally ask that. I normally I think the protocol is to wait till the information is volunteered willingly.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I don't have tact, so I would literally be like, how'd he bite it?
Well, I mean, I was trying to be professional. I take down all the information.
Oh, yeah, if I'm on the clock, I'm a different human being. What I do is I click mute on the phone and ask my boss what I'm allowed to say. I deal with students and sensitive information all the time. I am so happy to move it up the chain. Like, I have like my respectful researching certificate that's like, don't pressure people for information. Let them know how information will be used. I'm like, I work in PR. There is no way I'm letting people give me unsolicited details of their information without looping in my boss first.
Right. So I take down the information. It's like 11:30 at night when she actually calls. So Mr. Angry Bird is not in the store, obviously.
Reasonable. That's for grunts like you.
But so then he comes in the next day and he's like, "Oh, hey, did you hear that Mr. Mustard died?" I was like, "Yeah, I put all that information on your whiteboard." He's like, "Oh, his Mrs. Plum called today," and I was like, "Oh, she called last night to tell me the same thing." And so like, I know my boss. I'm like, I don't really think that he actually like. We respect human life, and every human has value.
You make pizza?
But yeah, we make pizza. Like it's
like you don't work a life or death field, if that makes sense. Like, I literally went through a training for a research project I'm on, and it was about like, we went through a whole lecture about when dealing with heavy emotional topics, the weight on them and the guilt they can have when you're trying to enforce the tough parts of your job on people to help people by restricting their freedoms, and the actual PTSD that causes. Yeah, you make pizza. This should not be in your wheelhouse.
Right, and so I'm pretty certain that he does not go to funerals for his ex-employees. So I outright ask him, because it's like, yeah, do you normally go to funerals for ex-employees? Like, it doesn't seem like something you would do. And he's like, oh no, I don't normally do that. I'd go to your funeral though.
Well, that makes sense. Like, he listens to your podcast. Like, yeah, he would go to your funeral. He's the one with the Karl tattoo, allegedly.
That would be awkward.
There's no way that's true. And that would be the best plot twist of all time. At that point, I'd
He
be
does
mildly
have
concerned we were actually gods manifesting things.
he does have a tattoo that I've never seen, so
It, it
I don't know.
it's definitely your face on an eagle. An eagle's body with your face.
uh,
Yet again, no way
but
that's actually true.
but yeah, it's just like that. I mean, there's not really much of a point to the story. It's just like
Well, the question was what's new with you, and this was definitely what's new with you. This wasn't an impromptu movie review. If anything, this is more on topic for what's new with you than a lot of our what's new with yous. Sometimes I'll be like, what's new with you? And you're like, have you read Ender's Game?
that's funny.
Uh,
But yeah, it's just like it's very strange. Like you say, it's a pizza place that I work at, and it's these sorts of topics aren't normal for pizza places, and I understand why Mrs. Plum thought that, like, because it was the relationship was very one-sided, where we were a huge benefit to them, but they were just like a little blip on our radar because like they did a job and we paid them. Like,
so it's wild to think about, right? Like, so my first thought was, like, I don't go to funerals anymore. Just full stop. It peaked. Like, unless they're giving me chicken wings and paralyzers, why would I go?
right.
But it's like, do you then cater pizza to this funeral? Like,
Oh, I mean, that was actually my first thought, was that they're going to ask us for like donations or something.
Right.
And I was just like, I probably would have asked my boss, and I actually think that my boss might have said yes, because I mean, word of mouth is our favorite form of advertising.
I mean, it's true. It would not cost your place much for us to advertise it as a sponsor of this podcast. I'm pretty sure we low-key do it, because I never throw shade at the pizza from your pizza place. Employees, sure, but never the food.
But no, she was just genuinely thought that that we would be interested in attending this funeral.
People go to like weird phases of their lives. Like when I had first moved out and was working at Robin's Donuts, it's like that would be a place people would have thought to reach out to if I mysteriously vanished. Where current me has like a much more structured social circle.
Right.
So it's like a lot of it too is like the stage of somebody's life, how much of like work is their social circle.
But so to bring the whole story full circle though. So Miss Plum tells me about the funeral. Then she calls back like 2 or 3 minutes later, and she's like, "Oh, yeah, there was this other guy who was working there as a driver. Does he still work there? Because he's Mr. Mustard's relative, and we don't really want them to find out about this."
Huh.
And I'm just like, huh. And I happen to know for a fact that it's a relative on the side of the mass murderer. I don't know if that's actually related, but I thought it was just like, huh. Yeah. I wonder if he was like living with his grandma to avoid a potential life of violence and crime. Not saying that everybody in that family would be a criminal, but
I mean,
it's crazy that.
Yeah, that's some wild pizza drama. It's kind of funny to me that your like day-to-day life is more dramatic than mine, and I'm in Toronto.
Well, yeah. So I mean, long and short, TLDR, I guess I did not attend the funeral, and for us, life goes on. I don't imagine I'll ever hear from Mrs. Plum again.
Yeah, like funerals are interesting. Like, I would never want to be in charge of planning one because it's like, who do you invite to a funeral? But also, it's like funerals are for the living, not for the dead, and I don't really care about the living. Right. So, like, my thoughts on funerals are like, I understand why you guys need to do this, but it's like, not for me. Which I'm not sure is a stance I'm allowed to have for funerals, but I'm having it.
but so what's new with you there, Richard?
Well, I kind of like bullet pointed it where I've been doing a lot of like working on my freelance, going to meetings, working on this research
Mm.
project and stuff, finishing books and things. So I've been very like scatterbrain productive.
Mm.
Like I said yesterday, I was meeting with a former professor, having a coffee in the office, talking about campus restructuring and possible opportunities for me in that. Learning that I'm actually qualified to teach some 101 level classes if they were looking for jobs, which is interesting. See, I don't actually know like what powers my degree gives me. So some of my meetings are literally, "Hey, I have this degree. What powers does it give me?" It's like you could probably teach college success. I'm like, "Well, that's cool."
Oh, so it's like a Green Lantern degree.
Kinda.
Gets you powers.
Well, I mean, to quote what I said to my mother earlier today, I did a 4-year course in professional bullshittery. Like it's creative writing and publishing, aka professional
Mm.
bullshittery, and then posting it places for people to read it. But like when you compress
Right.
it down, it's like, well, what jobs did it let you do? I'm like, what jobs need to invent stuff and then print it so people can read it? I don't know, all of them. Literally all of them need one of me.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it's like,
Uh, but your master's program is at a different college/university.
oh yeah, so colleges can do 4-year degrees, and even though they're mostly like 1 and 2 year programs, and then master's
Mm.
programs basically have to be out of a university.
Ah, okay.
So I have to upgrade. Yeah, I'll be mean about it. I have to upgrade to a university from a college.
I'm still a little bit confused about what the difference is because universities just seem to be a collection of colleges. But that's
That's
neither here nor there.
it also like really depends. Like Canada's setup's a little different too, where it's like I'm pretty sure the difference between college and university in Canada is the like number and level of programs they offer, but I'm not actually 100% on that. But I do know to get a master's or a doctorate, you got to go to university.
Mm.
And it used to be to get a
Yeah.
bachelor's you had to as well, but then more and more colleges started offering bachelor's programs. It's a whole thing.
Mm.
But yeah, TLDR on that one is my life has been a lot of meetings, sun shining, birds singing, me having to get free coffee and scones while I listen to people talk. It's pretty great.
Oh man, no one offers me scones.
Like actual scones are great. So like this was a relatively uneventful week for me. Although I did
Mm.
meet up with a friend of mine this weekend and we started going through Lego Horizon Zero Dawn.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
So it's a Lego game based on another video game, which I've never seen before. But Lego has really upped their game with this one. So you know how we
wait.
played Lego City Undercover, and it's like not every
Okay,
asset
so
in.
just so the Horizon, I believe that was a PlayStation exclusive game, which then got Legofied and published multi-platform, including on the Switch.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So the thing that impresses me about it is, remember Lego City Undercover, how like most of the game was Lego, but the ground wasn't Lego, the particle effects weren't Lego, da 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 da.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
So for this Horizon game, one of their goals was to make it a playable Lego movie.
Mm.
So every part of that game is Lego. When you take steps, there's the one square tiles flipping in the air. Everything from the confetti to the ground to the lighting is done Lego movie quality. So like we're playing our co-op Lego movie quality Lego game, but having never played Horizon Zero Dawn, it's like it'd be like only knowing Ruby from Ruby Chibi. So like the idea that the version of the story I know is the Legofied version is like objectively funny.
That is pretty funny.
As I'm just being like impressed by the graphic fidelity on this 4K TV watching a Lego game, being like, this is like extremely well crafted.
Mm.
I think the one that got me was when the robot T-Rex fired its death laser. You could tell it was made out of stacked transparent bricks being launched at you. And I'm like, yeah, this is super committed to the bit. Also, I just love me a good Lego game.
Mm.
Like Lego City Undercover is probably in my
fun.
top 10 games.
Lego City Undercover was a great game.
Like I have a certain love for games that you can actually beat from start to finish.
Mm.
Like a game where like you and a friend can just play through it at a reasonable rate is a good design to me.
Right.
Between that and living my life, that's what's new with me. I really enjoyed Lego Horizon Zero Dawn. We had a lengthy conversation of what products would be best when Legoized.
Right.
And I've done a bunch of meetings. Gotten hella free coffee cups recently. Got like 5 water bottles over the last week and like 6 mugs.
Why are you getting so much free swag?
Well, I went to the Indie Authors Conference, which gave me a swag bag, bunch of business cards. I went to another. So we had the Fold Festival happen in Brandon, which is the Festival of Literary Diversity, which is a whole lot of panels and events and things.
Mm.
So it's like it was basically book week out here. And when it's book week, I try and go to as many events as I can, and most events have swag. And then meetings at the
Fair.
campus, because 30% to 60% of program offerings got reduced due to budget, which means
Right.
there's programs that no longer exist that have swag.
Aha.
And I'm
right.
like, hey,
So now they're
may I have
gonna
swag,
offload that.
please? Like, I even got like a USB power bank that's branded,
a branded USB power bank.
right? So yeah, no, free swag. I have so many tote bags you can't possibly imagine. Because every indie publishing house, every event, every panel, every arts, every arts organization, because Toronto's like the 6 cities or whatever, and like there's the Brampton Arts Organization. When they have an event, they'll have swag. The Mississauga Arts Organization will have swag. The Toronto Arts Organization will have swag.
It sounds like maybe your microphone got jostled a bit.
Testing.
Now that sounds better.
Excellent. So, yeah, I collect tote bags now pretty much. Like, if I had sewing skills, I could probably just keep my wardrobe up to date by disassembling and reassembling tote bags. However, shall we pivot into this week's topic, which tragically isn't what games would you like to be Lego-fied, and instead is time travel. Because So we've done some time travel stuff on this podcast before. I'm not going to go through all 100 episodes to make sure we don't talk on the series we've already talked on. But time travel is also like one of the most common things. So it's like as a writing device, as people in the fantasy and sci-fi space like we usually are. Yeah, there's a lot of time travel. Like I'm certain at some point I've talked about Steins Gate and just how brilliantly like balanced and wrapped up that show was. But I'm curious to see why you're going into time travel, so I can follow along on this journey.
Well, the very first thing, for the main reason I thought about time travel is there's the actress that plays Penny from The Big Bang Theory, Kaylee Cuoco or something.
I believe so. She also voices Harley Quinn in the animated Harley Quinn show. Ooh, can I give a side tangent that I gave in my body horror sci-fi identities class?
Okay.
So, creating a backwards time machine, we haven't figured out how to do it yet. But we already have a forwards time machine. And it's called hitting someone unconscious with a brick.
Yeah, okay.
That's it. That's how you travel forward in time. You just hit someone with a brick and they'll wake up the next day, hopefully. Moving people into the future is real easy.
But so, Kaylee Cuoco, Cuoko. I don't know how you... anyway.
Fan of the podcast, probably.
Hopefully. But whenever I see a movie with her in it, I'm always curious what role she's playing that isn't Penny. Or the 8 Simple Rules. And the last one was called Roleplay. I didn't really like that one. That one wasn't that good.
No Dungeons or Dragons?
There were no Dungeons or Dragons. Just Kaylee Cuoco being a Cuoco. Anyway, she was a super spy. Actually, I believe that one also actually launched a episode about tropes that we did, because it's the like fish out of water story where the one family member is the super spy and the other one finds out. And
yeah.
Anyways,
but I am gonna say though, she has surprising range. Like, by range,
Yeah.
I mean the Metacritic scores of movies she's in ranges wildly. Like, she'll do a movie and be
Although
like,
role
this is
play,
a perfect 10 out of 10. And she'll do a movie like, this is a 3. And I'm like, you just, you don't determine whether this movie succeeds or fails by yourself. And I don't know how I feel about that, good or bad.
uh, oddly enough, role play is from 2024. The movie I'm actually wanting to talk about, which is about time travel, is called Meet Cute. I thought it was newer, but apparently it's from 2022.
Should I hit you
And
with a
for
brick so it comes out in 2025?
anyways, but the movie Meet Cute, uh, she is an absolute psychopath. She finds a time machine that looks like a tanning bed,
Sure.
and then I don't. There's something in the story about how like you can go back in time, but you can only be back in time for 24 hours at a time, which I don't know. It's kind of a weird and confusing plot point that doesn't. Time travel is difficult, but um,
Like when Dragon Ball Super
she
gave you a flowchart.
she goes back in time to have a first date, a meet cute, with this one guy. Like she goes on this meet cute with the guy like 365 times because she's like an entire year, and she just keeps going back 24 hours to meet this guy again and play through this first date.
The Groundhog Day method, yes. I'm familiar.
And then like she gets it gets tired and stale because she's always living the same night, but she's scared to move on because her life sucks. So then she decides to travel back in time even further, and spends every Sunday for 3 months of her meet cute's childhood. She dresses up into disguise, names herself like Uncle Charlie, and plays catch with him so that he'll grow up to like sports more. So that when she goes back to do the meet cute, because even though things change, she still shows up at the same bar at the same time.
I'll allow it. There's things on the time stream we call plot points, and sometimes you just have to put those in so your movie can happen.
Well, yeah, I mean that's true. But then she doesn't like the new version of him and travels back in time to knock herself out in the disguise so that they don't play sports with the kid. And then it turns out that she had told him about this nice cable guy when she was younger, and then on the final night of the meet cute, he takes the time machine and he is the nice cable guy from her childhood, and so it's like a self-referencing loop where obviously he must have found the time machine in the first place because she mentioned it in one of her time loops, but then it caused her to find the time machine. Like it just my first question is, do self-referencing time loops like that bother you?
So, to go to Steins Gate, which has a kind of self-referencing one, the core premise of Steins Gate being they accidentally, with a microwave, build a time machine that lets them send text back in time, and the text moves you into an alternate timeline. That alternate timeline results in his best friend dies. And then, like, the second half of the series is him effectively undoing each of the time travel messages that were used. Like, one person used one to alter their father's death, so they had to, like, let their father die to save this one person. Another one managed to change their gender via message, which was an interesting concept where it's like, I learned that if you eat these while pregnant, it can affect the gender, and I don't like my gender, so I'm gonna send a message. I'm like, okay, anime, I think you handled trans issues gracefully. I'll get back to you on that one, Steins Gate. But like, the idea was that it was the classic messing with history is bad, and then Steins Gate was a series of, okay, I have to undo all these things that seemed like they were good messes with history. But then the final thing was having to scam history effectively, where it's like, okay, in the original loop where it looked like my love interest died, I just had to scam myself into thinking my love interest died so everything played out. The hard thing is a self-referential time looping thing like that. I've only seen two series successfully do it, because it's hard to do. So Steins Gate succeeds, where when it was originally a visual
Right.
novel, the only way to get the ending was to undo all the emails and make the final painful choice to let the person die to then save them. And another
Right.
series that did the time loop well was actually Attack on Titan of all things.
Huh.
So the name of the first chapter is To Myself, 20,000 years in the 5,000 years in the future, and the other one was like To Myself. The last chapter, first chapter had opposite names, and you see him wake up with tears in his eyes in the first panel, and it's like, yeah, the time looping nature of Attack on Titan, where he knew he was going to wipe out humanity, thus ensuring he wiped out humanity, was
Hmm.
fascinating. Now, there's a lot of things that went wrong after the time skip of Attack on Titan, like following characters I didn't care about,
Right.
but it did the time travel well.
Hmm.
So I don't mind it, but you're so likely to shoot yourself in the foot doing it. It's like how like the
Yeah.
original Fate Stay Night trilogy were technically 3 separate time loops because he kept getting the bad ending of becoming a hero and then getting summoned back to this war to have memories of
Hmm.
himself going through it until he reaches the final conclusion of screw it, which breaks the loop.
Right. Hmm. Well, so did you dislike Fate Stay Night's time loop?
Oh, I love Fate Stay Night's time loop. It was he went through 3 alternate stories, and you think they're standalone stories of, oh, here's 3 alternate routes on my visual novel, and then you learn actually it's it's a time travel story. Oh, then because it's like, oh, it's you go through this one story arc, and then go through the next one, and then by the third one you realize, oh wait, each story arc it's basically every route in this visual novel actually happens.
Right.
So instead of like picking your choices and choicing matters, like no, every choice technically played out. It's just really hard to do. Like
Hmm.
a looping time travel story is just tricky to do. Good luck. But I don't hate it
I mean,
fundamentally.
hmm.
But then we get to like Doctor Who and Star Trek that can't do a looping time story to save its life, or CW's Flash, where it's like people always want to do the time travel story where it's like, yeah, the time travel is a closed loop, and the means for the time travel is to stop the time travel, and there's no paradoxes, and I wrote this perfectly. And then they don't ever write it perfectly, and you end up with like literally the Flash having to have Ghost come deal with it, and the timeline's just broken and doesn't make sense. And it's like, yeah, it just is broken. It's bad.
Well, okay. So I mean, like, it really, like, the the simplest way to do time travel is just to travel back to the past and never go back to the future.
Yeah,
Because when you go back to the future, that's where the paradoxes start to occur.
hashtag Back to the Future. Or like I love to rant about in Marvel Infinity War, they straight up
Hmm.
explain that we don't actually travel into the past. You're going into an alternate future, and they explained it perfectly. And then Captain America ruined it.
I knew that was going to come up because that was like
They had it. They were good to go. They won.
it was so good until they decided that they needed to give that meta ending to Chris Evans for his character.
Right.
And it's like, no, the meta ending is ruined your almost perfect time travel movie.
Because like when we look at like the 5 main frameworks of time travel, first we have
Hmm.
fixed timeline, where it's deterministic and it will always play out the way it's going to play out, and anything you do will always happen.
Right.
I'm struggling to think of some specific examples, but it's usually along the line of Fate's a bitch.
Right. The very thing that it's the idea that when you try to prevent something through time travel, that causes the thing.
And I'm trying to think of examples where that happens really well. Like there's examples where it happens, like I think Terminator for the most part is fixed, and there's like it still happens.
Hmm.
But I'm trying to think of other examples of fixed timeline stories, because usually the way you would tell that story is like the character coming to terms that they can't fix it, and they usually have to just accept that they've been defeated.
Right.
And yeah, nothing's coming to mind right now. But it's also a great way to write a time travel story. If I travel back in time, and this thing I tried to prevent can't happen because I travel back in time, it's fine.
Hmm.
Then the next one is the dynamic timeline, like the Back to the Future butterfly effect, you're going to ruin your series. You can't write a good Back to the Future. Good luck. Like, the idea that you travel back to the past and to the present, that is easily the one that breaks the most often. Like, the one you were talking about just now was a dynamic timeline.
Yeah, that's the one where you have to have plot points for your story to make sense. For example, with Back to the Future, he goes back in time. He changes the way that his mom and his dad meet, and that causes his siblings to have a much better life. But somehow does not cause any changes whatsoever to his life, such that he still meets Doc Brown at the exact same time in the exact same parking lot, and Doc Brown still gets attacked by the Iranians. But like how did his time travel affect his siblings and his parents so much, but then somehow not affect him? And then what happened to the him that actually was in that timeline? Like, do you overwrite people in timeline? Like, Back to the Future is a great series of movies, but a lot of that is nostalgia.
Yeah, and then when you look at like Steins Gate had a dynamic timeline, but its big point was like the little branches all meet back up to central things unless you manage to shift it and divert it enough. And the whole premise was they did change the timeline, which causes like, and also Steins Gate for the most part had like small changes if we sent one text back.
Right.
But it was like, yeah, no, it was this made things worse. This resulted in time travel being a thing, CERN going evil, and then them all being machine gunned down because they invented time travel. And the only way to like fix that timeline was to not invent the time travel.
Right.
So it was an interesting way where it's like there's still going to be some flaws in it. So it's like the dynamic timeline is probably the most interesting one, but would be the hardest one to write.
Right.
So next we have multiverse. That's the easy one. That's how come Dragon Ball just successfully did time travel despite being written by Akira Toriyama, who once forgot what Super Saiyan 3 was in an interview. Because yeah,
well, actually, I think a more interesting multiverse example is The Legend of Zelda.
Fine. But like the Dragon Ball one's a good example though, because you can easily go like Trunks made time machine and move to an alternate timeline, and he just straight up goes, "Yeah, nothing I change here will change my future. That wasn't work, so I came for a different reason." I'm like, you're right. Okay, you win. You're right. Every time you use a machine, you're just creating an alternate reality, and it's literally just dimension hopping you.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
So, I just find it super interesting, the Legend of Zelda example, being that when you travel to the future in wow.
Ocarina of Time, brah. Or
yeah,
are we
I was
going
thinking Link
Skyward
to
Sword?
the past, but no, I was Ocarina of Time, where you travel forward into the future, and then that creates a timeline where the young hero never returned.
So it's interesting because, like, the Hyrule story is like, we're going to make these things that were never written to go together.
Right.
But if we look at Ocarina of Time in a vacuum, not counting sequels, prequels, or any of that nonsense, it still works for the way they have it set up. Except for one exception, which is the Song of Storms.
Oh? The Song of Storm.
So you teach him the Song of Storms as a kid, that you learn from him as an adult.
Yeah, okay.
So that is just one of those time remnant situations of that's just a paradox. Because everything else of like, oh yeah, what you changed in the past really doesn't change what happened in the future much, except for like planting bean plants. So it's not really alternate timelines for that one, it's actually dynamic timelines, which is a shame because if they committed it to being alternate, when you go to the past, but what you change in the past, you defeat him in the future, and then it gives you the knowledge to the past, you make a good timeline, and then it never happened. Would have made more sense. Would have succeeded. But no, they went dynamic. Then we got the Groundhog Day, the time loop, the Edge of Tomorrow, where you're stuck in a loop till you break the loop. Unlike our PAL dynamic timeline, the time loops is much cleaner.
Yeah, the Groundhog Day, Happy Death Day, Edge of Tomorrow. Uh, they're they're all very interesting movies
And there's
because
one of these
you know
episodes in every long-running sci-fi series. Star Trek has one.
yeah
I'm sure Star Wars has one somewhere. Stargate absolutely had one. Stargates was really funny.
actually here's something. I asked my friends about time loops, whether or not what he liked about them, and he's like, my favorite time loop isn't actually a time loop. There's a series that's called Person of Interest.
Okay.
And there's an AI that the good guys are using to track down criminals, and then the criminals have their AI that they're trying to use to track down the good guys. And the good guys are all trapped in a room, and you see a sequence play out. All the good guys die, and then it rewinds like the classic like videotape, and starts over, and then goes through it, and it turns out this AI is just processing all the potential possibilities and playing through them, and you watch the AI think through all these possibilities, and it's not exactly a time loop, but every time all the heroes die, it replays, goes back to the beginning, and then as the AI starts running out of time, it starts taking shortcuts, be like, insert witty quip here.
That is amazing.
And it's like, it's not a time loop because it's actually just all this processing happening at the same time, but it is time loop-esque, which is very interesting.
Yeah. And then the last one is non-linear time, which is like Arrival. Good luck. It's like past, present, future all coexist. Time is a stacked dimension rather than a flowing one. You're looking at different points of the timeline simultaneously. Yeah, good luck.
Well, I mean, to me, that kind of seems like it most closely aligns with our actual scientific knowledge of the time-space continuum.
Yeah, but I'm going to put this out there. You can't write a fourth dimensional movie. Arrival got real close. But, like, if you can't physically perceive it because our brains can't perceive it, it's kind of hard to write a compelling character-driven narrative where the rules of it are only equations on a board. Because, yeah, the non-linear, time is static, free will may be an illusion because you're just observing different parts, but the observation changes the outcome sometimes, and other times it doesn't. All right, now write a book. And I'm like, characters, right. So then you have things like Arrival, which was like almost more about them processing the death of their son than the time travel. Because, yeah. As someone super genre savvy, Arrival took some effort when I had to write a paper on that to be like, okay, so how does this work? And it's like, oh yeah, there's tense just slips in this story deliberately like mad. Ted Chiang is a lunatic, but that's unrelated. But yeah, so those are the ways at least my class had it sorted for different kinds of timeline travel. Did I get them all? Did I like miss something? Because really it's probably actually, like I said 5, but it's probably 4, and Groundhog Day is technically either fixed or dynamic depending on how it's set. But the time loop comes up enough that I called it its own.
Yeah, well, no, I'm pretty sure time loop is its own thing. Like time loop is its own genre. There are so many like you say, time loop sci-fi episodes, time loop movies, and a lot of them actually do put interesting twists on it. But at the end of the day, it's just you reset back to a specific point, and then you have to live through that day.
So even my second novel, The Minuet of Sorcery, on sale on Amazon, used the time loop where I think I told you I had a character that can basically set a 5-second save point and go back to their save point and try again infinitely. But we're stuck in a fight that their ass got kicked in so many creative ways that they lived in this time loop until they just eventually gave up and stabbed themselves. And the next chapter starts where they walk up to this guy who draws their blade and then just kills himself. And they're like, why did that happen? And one of them's like, I don't know, I guess that was just a freebie. But you go through the chapter where it's like, yeah, they kept trying, and it's just every time they thought they won, they just lost in another horrible way. Because their incredibly busted power of rewind time and try again, there was just no win condition in this fight.
They just couldn't rewind time far enough.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, there's one bit where they catch an arrow in their teeth, jump off a sword, do a spin kick, and then they pull out a gun and just shoot them, basically. It's like, oh, I didn't even realize they had a weapon. I never got this far. It's like a Dark Souls boss where it's just like, oh, this is just, I see, once you defeat one, the other one powers up. That's unfortunate.
Okay, a certain magical index.
Yes.
I recall there being a point where the main hero, his hand stops magic attacks or whatever, but he goes into a battle and then things get reset, and then he ends up actually remembering parts of the reset and gets further and further along in his ability to actually fight
what
this
they
battle.
did was
that actually a time loop?
So it was so here's how the time loop went. It was each time he fought this fight, the villain was trying to break them. Specifically, their win condition was, I need this person to give up. They forgot every time what happened because they're in a time loop, but their muscle memory remembered. So as their mind, they reset it, but their reflexes got better to what was actually happening in the fight till they eventually won.
Right.
So it was absolutely a time loop. And I'm not sure, even how good my recollection of it reading a translated light novel was.
Right.
But, the thing that makes the time loop work is that you're stuck in... The loop is an abnormal setting, and you're stuck in it till the thing breaks it. So there's never a paradox, really, because it's the paradox is the loop. So it's yeah, you just have to break the loop. That's the goal. So break it. And then nothing that happened in the loop ever actually matters until you get all the pieces you need to get out of the loop. I.e. Majora's Mask was one of the best time loops ever made. Because the entire point is yeah, everyone's exact... Man, the fact they actually programmed a working Groundhog Day into that where everyone was in their locations with their dialogue and then you'd loop through. I really enjoyed the time loop scam that guy wrote down on your hand a stamp for how much money he owed you with his own sorting system because he couldn't keep track of people. And it's the only reason you kept your money through each time loop was he could see the logo on your hand saying how much money he owed you because he drew it.
Yeah, okay.
Although I will say, one thing Steins Gate did that made their time loop slash dynamic timeline work really well is they were only sending memories back, not stuff, for the most part. Because when you send back stuff, paradoxes happen easy. When you send back memories...
So then, what do you think about Days of Future Past with that kind of time travel?
Days of Future Past is the dynamic timeline travel, where it's yeah, we sent back his consciousness, which to me feels more in line with how time travel would actually work.
Right.
But Days of Future Past, if we're going the comic or the episodes, sure. But the number of plot holes Fox Studios' Days of Future Past introduced into that series is unfathomable. They literally changed a character from being a 6-foot-tall black man to Peter Dinklage. So, when you're doing a movie, and you're doing movies that are years apart, and then trying to be time travel's a thing, it's your movies already aren't consistent if you're not playing the time travel game. Why would you even mess with that?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And then you get the Marvel nonsense being we have world lines and we prune the lines, and then there's Keystone people. I'm just stop inventing MacGuffins. Just say your time travel doesn't work. You have a new MacGuffin every time travel movie because it doesn't actually work. Because it gives the obvious question of why not just choke out baby Thanos.
Oh man,
it's just so funny because they had it and then gave up.
The one of my favorite time travel movies is The Butterfly Effect.
It's not Doctor Strange?
No, I really... I can never remember if this was actually the theatrical release or not, because there was an alternate ending. But it really, firstly, it's a character-driven drama,
Mhm.
and I don't watch a lot of them, but I do enjoy character-driven stories. Um, and so like the main character played by Ashton Kutcher, which is another like he's such a doofy actor, and then he played this serious role, which is another reason like, huh, interesting to me. But anyways, he realizes that I don't remember exactly how he triggers it, but he can like go back into the past to change things, and then he comes back to the present, and the changes start to materialize. And he's trying to create a better life for the person that he loves, and everything that he changes makes their life worse. Until he realizes that the only way to fix things is to go back in time and choke himself out in the womb.
That seems correct.
I was just like, I love it because I can't believe that it went there.
So what's really funny is like that's technically the final boss battle of Earthbound if you pay attention. Is you're absolutely fighting the final boss at the time when he's the most weakest, and when you pay attention to the visuals, you're like, no, that is actually what's happening. Yeah. So Earthbound went there. Also, I think Chrono Trigger would count as a dynamic timeline.
That's a dynamic timeline.
Where it's like Chrono Trigger, it was like there wasn't fixed things that were guaranteed to happen at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Chrono Trigger's a weird one though, because it's like you don't think too much about the time travel in Chrono Trigger. Like it's there, but it's more set dressing than anything.
Yeah. I don't know. Chrono Trigger might be more static than you think. Because, like you say, it's like set dressing rather than an actual like integral. Like you're not
making choices really
to change the timeline.
Like you are, but you aren't.
You go somewhere to like retrieve something, but I don't know. I do really love Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is probably the game that I played the most endings. Games with multiple endings, I don't think I've ever actually 100%ed any game that has multiple endings, but I think Chrono Trigger I got close.
Probably because Chrono Trigger was a reasonably length game.
Yeah, it was a reasonably length game. I think I managed to run through it like 5 times because I really wanted to get the crazy prism armor for all the characters. But
and then you get to Final Fantasy VIII, which is the worst time travel story ever written. It just doesn't work, no matter how you think of it.
Okay, so full disclosure, I have played through, and I think I've actually beaten Final Fantasies 1 through 6.
Correct. You did
and then
the right
just
thing.
Dropped off the map. I have not played anything Final Fantasy 7 or up.
You did the right thing. I'm proud of you. That's correct. So people love Final Fantasy 7 because their brains were still developing at the time. Okay. But Final Fantasy VIII has one of the most nonsensical, bullshit, nonsense plots of anything ever. It's like the more that you think about it, the less sense it makes, and it hurts my brain.
Okay.
It's just not a... And then, like, the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, whatever, are doing, like, multiverse timeline, dynamic but linear, where, like, literal ghost things you could see were trying to enforce you to follow the timeline, but then you break the ghost things so anything can happen now, and I'm like, this game's so far up its own ass it's coming out its own mouth. It's very pretty, though. Very gorgeous game.
Okay, but so Final Fantasy VIII, it had time travel?
So, how can I put this? So you would pass out and have dreams, and during your dreams you would junction your abilities and stats into characters that were operating 20 years in the past, who it was kind of vague whether or not you were controlling them or not from your present characters.
Okay.
And then the main villain is in the future, trying to send themselves into the past, to then send themselves further into the past, so they can go back further enough to conquer the world?
I see.
Which sounds good on paper, but then you see the way they tell this story, you're like, no.
Yeah, okay.
Because, yeah, it's like the main villain is possessed by a sorceress from the distant future whose goal was to compress all time into a single moment, a plan called time compression that would give her godlike power over existence.
Okay.
And then, to defeat the sorceress in the past, you were sending your dreams to the past. Then you meet the person you sent it to. It just doesn't work. I tried. I tried so hard. It's like, here's a Richard hot take, and this is going to be an arrogant statement to make, but if I can't follow the plot of something with my literal training and skill set, it's its fault,
Right.
not mine. I firmly believe that if Richard tries, he reads the articles, the Wikipedia, plays the game, finishes the book, and tries to understand it and can't, it's broken. It's just broken at that point.
Just fundamentally broken.
Can't be done. No sane person can do it. Someone tells me, "Oh no, Final Fantasy's plot 8's plot simple," I'd call them an idiot. And I stand by it. But with that, we're reaching the end of our episode, so I should probably pull up our random question of the week, unless anyone in the streets handed you a vanilla envelope that has a question.
Surely I did not get a random question for someone in the streets, but I do actually have a random question.
Ooh, you do have one from the streets. Excellent.
From the ghetto. Anyways, so the question is, if you could drive,
Rude,
and a friend won the lottery, and one of the ways that they want to spend their money is to hire you as a chauffeur, do you accept the job without question, accept the job conditionally, or decline the job because you're worried it'll ruin the relationship?
accept the job with 4 specific conditions. First question,
Okay.
though, which friend won the lottery? This is very important.
Yeah, see, I mean, hypothetically, it would be me because I spend a lot of time imagining what I would do if I won the lottery.
Conditional
and that was one of the things.
For you, conditional acceptance, because here's my specific terms and conditions for this lottery that you totally won here.
Yeah, okay.
So I'd absolutely, A, get my license specifically for this purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and then drive you places. But first, you'd have to pay for me to get my license.
Right.
And I'm only your professional full-time driver, Monday to Friday, 8 to 4, and then you have to specifically request me to drive you places outside that window. Because I'm a writer, right? So if I have guaranteed income from my millionaire friend, then yeah, driving is my day job. Sure, I'm on call to drive. You're paying me full hours to not, because you're not actually going 8 hours a day driving places. So
That's
like, yeah,
true.
I'll work 2 hours and you can pay me for 8 so I can work on my book in between or on the car. Because it's like, yeah, if I'm driving you in a nice vehicle and you're like
That's
committing
true.
crimes or something, or like throwing hookers at each other or playing 1-to-1 scale D&D, I could just be working on my book on the laptop, and when you come back in, put my laptop back under the seat and continue driving you places. So yeah, absolutely, but I have to put in the conditions that it's a regular job, because I do not live that life where at 2 in the morning you're like, if you're like, I was an emergency, help me, I'm like, okay, but I'm taking tomorrow off, not just I'm on call 24/7 and my life is to drive you to places. Standards, brah. But I would move back to Saskatchewan for this.
Oh, wow. I mean, I guess I have enough money to move you and pay you to learn how to drive.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe your certificate is still good, that you're super close to getting a Saskatchewan license.
Let's be honest, if you're like a lottery-winning millionaire, I'm just paying a better driving school, and they're probably just going to bullshit my way through this.
Okay, but I mean, I don't have to name names, but are there friends that you would refuse to be a chauffeur for?
So there's a few friends I would refuse. They're simply too whimsical and unreliable. There's not very many, though.
They wouldn't respect your 9 to 5 workday or 8 to 4 workday, whatever you'd prefer?
Correct. Then there's people like you directly in the middle where I would do it, but I have to put down some terms and conditions.
Right.
And there's 3 people I would just say yes and not question it, because they're that responsible and reliable of people. Like, for example, Jeremy. Jeremy, I would just say yes, because he ain't going anywhere. I'm driving him to school and picking him up. No, no crimes are happening. No chaos is happening. It's a safe bet. My friend Redacted. Yeah, she's the most sensible human being I've ever met. I'd absolutely agree to that. They're only hiring me because they want me to want what's best for me in my life. It'd be a very reasonable situation.
Right.
Now I have a couple more friends that are closer on the Karl spectrum where I'd be like, you seem like safe, but there'd be a few times I'd have to pick you up at 3 in the morning and hold back your hair as you vomit in a bucket. That's who you are as a person. And I'd have to put some rules in place just in case when this inevitably happens.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And for the record, I don't think you're the cause of my reasonable requests. I need to put rules on you because you have people who are chaos in your life that you're using your driver to save them.
That is very likely.
Like, I get a text at 2 in the morning and be like, oh, we need to save my brother. And I'm like, okay, fine.
Me personally, I've been thinking about this, and most of the people I've asked at my workplace, at least, have just said yes, that they would accept the job. Most of them have said there would be some conditions. One person outright refused because they were worried that it would ruin the relationship. It's like, I was thinking about it, it's like, I said this once already in this episode, but it's an unbalanced relationship. But then, as you say, you're not actually spending that much time driving a person around, so it maybe would actually be okay.
Also, this is worth noting for me as a person. So, as a grad student, I'm a mooch to my friends because of the life I live. It is a not well-kept secret that I, right now, will do work for people for money because I'm a broke student who needs gig work. That's like the situation. So if you're like, hey, I'm offering you this job, in my brain, you're helping me. Like if you lived here and said, hey, Vlad, I'll give you $20 to mow my lawn. Yeah, I'm a student right now. I would take you up on that offer. $20 will help me. I'd probably charge you $50 because of transport. So that's kind of like, for me, as a grown-ass man in my 30s, the power dynamic of doing gigs for people isn't a power dynamic. I'm a freelancer. There's not much difference between you paying me to drive you places as you paying me to write you a memoir. That's just how the exchange works. So I don't find it to be an unbalance of power because my exit's simple. You stop paying me, I stop driving you. You're a dick, I quit.
Yeah, okay.
So, like, I'm not indebted to your money, really, at all, which is the perk of being a grown-ass adult. Now, hot take, if you made this offer to your girlfriend, that would get fucked up. Because you're like, oh, I will pay our living expenses, but you have to drive me places. That becomes an unbalanced power dynamic, because she can't really say no in that situation where you're like, okay, I'm a millionaire, so do what I say. That becomes questionable.
Right.
Where I could theoretically, if you like went mad with power, punch you in the face with knuckles that say resign on them. And then when you wake up in the morning and see resign punched into your face, I've resigned. So that's how I view the power dynamic on that one. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm already a suck up right now, so sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you say, a lot of my actual friends are pretty chaos incarnate. So I would definitely be worried about that power dynamic. And I think for the most part, I might actually refuse to be someone's chauffeur.
Right, but you wouldn't refuse to be mine because I'm actually really boring in practice. I have complete faith you would actually do it, no questions asked, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Because you're like, oh, what's Vlad going to do? Have me drive him to the bookstore? Sure. I'd install a Nintendo Switch in the back seat. Like.
Okay, did you use this time to find an other random question?
Oh yeah, I just enjoyed this one. So I have a funny one, a philosophical one, and a strange one.
Okay.
So here's the funny question. It's similar to one we've gotten before, so we might have to skip over it, but if animals could talk, which species would be the most sarcastic?
Which species would be the most sarcastic?
And why? So the obvious answer is cat, but I don't actually think it's true. I think the most sarcastic animal, like in real life, would probably be something that's self-assured and confident so it can get away with being sarcastic as fuck. So my money's
Right.
on something like a platypus, where it's like toxic and could kill you, but it's also doofy. But I also feel like, and call me if I'm wrong, I think polar bears would be extremely sarcastic. Because like they've lived such a rough life, but are also could just crush you into a ball. It'd be like, "Hey, polar bear, how are you?" He's like, "So good," with the ice cracking. So my money's on polar bear.
Uh,
They have that mix of I could kill you if I wanted to, but also you guys have screwed over my entire life, but also I'm a bear.
I think raccoons would be very sarcastic.
Yeah. Although I feel like
They would be very sassy.
raccoons would be absolute. I don't know if they'd be more sarcastic. Like I think they'd be more like quippy. Like, but yes, I agree. So that was a funny question. Here's a philosophical question. Is a
Ooh.
decision truly yours to make if someone forced you to feel emotions before making the decision?
If it's the decision truly yours to make,
If it was
if
based on
someone
emotions you
forced-
didn't choose to feel.
if it was based on emotions you didn't choose to feel.
So, like, for example, someone's like, hey, will you be my chauffeur? But you just learned they had cancer. Was that decision really truly yours to make?
Well, I mean, yeah.
I'm going to say yeah,
I-
too. It's an interesting question to be like, if you're emotionally manipulated and you make your decision, in court you can argue, I was emotionally manipulated, but I still think you fundamentally made the choice. Whether it was under duress or
Yeah.
false pretenses aside. But then if it's like straight up under duress, like I was afraid for my life, so I made this decision, then it wasn't really yours. That was extortion at that point. We have words for that.
No, see, I think that you still made the choice to to not call their bluff.
Yeah, but like, having lived in the rough streets of downtown Calgary, I don't think it was really my choice when a person pulled a knife on me and said, give me your money. Well, I guess it was, but like...
I mean, sure, it was incentivized to be one way or the other, but ultimately, if you just say no and then it turns out like with gun violence, a lot of the times, someone will pull out a gun, and they actually are just as afraid of that gun as you are, and they won't use it. And so, like, I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast before or not, but there was someone in our parking lot or a store. They had a gun. Then they had it in a baby carriage for some reason. They see some people walking across the street. They call them over. They want to like fight or whatever, and then they pull out the gun and they're pointing at this person, right? And the other person, without batting an eye, they just slap the gun away and deck the person in the face.
That's so action movie coded, though. Like,
but it's just like the person who had the gun, they felt like they were in power, but they didn't actually intend to use the gun. And so it's like, yeah, this person was under duress to make a choice, but ultimately they're like, yeah, I'm going to call your bluff.
yeah, I'm probably not calling the bluff with a gun.
Me neither. I think the safer choice is to not call the bluff. But
I mean, on my to-do list, though, is for someone to pull a knife on me and me cut their arm off with my cane sword. I don't actually own a cane sword for legal disclosure on this podcast. All right, and our final question. The moon suddenly turned into a giant mirror. What weird societal or psychological changes do you think would happen? So the moon is just a giant mirror, and if you look up, you see your own reflection in it.
Huh.
My brain's like,
What
my brain wants to go physics with it, right? But the question is societal or psychological changes to the moon if the moon's just a giant mirror. Because my brain wants to know logistics more than anything. Like, if I look up, do I see my own reflection in the moon mirror?
Well, so I don't know how big an issue this is with wind turbines, but I have heard that some wind turbines, the fans are very large, and they end up creating a lot of reflection to the point where it could actually be you have to have like a certain distance between the turbines and roads to make sure that reflections don't get in the eyes of drivers and whatnot. And the moon, surprisingly, well, not surprisingly, but if you think about it, it makes sense. But the moon actually is in the sky during the day, roughly half the time that you can see the moon. It's actually in the daytime that you'll be able to see the moon. So the moon cycles for daytime in particular would be like that would be insane how much that would affect people being able to like drive or like affect people being able to work in tall buildings with like beams of light just blasting in through the windows. Like
werewolves would have to retire and the poets would revolt.
Feng shui would have a whole new meaning because like you literally have to have your windows facing a specific way so that you minimize the amount of reflection you get from the moon mirror.
Honestly, you know what would probably happen? We would destroy it. Mankind would not let that moon mirror look up and know that like Earth is being reflected on us. We'd lose our bloody minds and we'd blow the thing up. Complete faith that that's the outcome. It wouldn't even take long. Like Earth would unite on the singular goal of smashing the moon mirror. Or at least spray painting it.
Yeah.
But with that, thank you for everyone for tuning in. Send us random questions. I don't know. Drink water, I guess.
Yeah. Self-care, you know. Make sure you go see a doctor when it's necessary.
I'm gonna here's like a bit of some questionable advice to end the episode with. Plan your funeral to be interesting if you want me to attend it. like I don't know, make everyone wear fun hats or something. Liven it up a bit. Jeez, it's not like someone died around.
Well, yeah, you gotta plan your own funeral to make sure that it's interesting enough for me to come.
Yep, that is the takeaway of this episode. Oh man. Yeah, I'm going to just stop recording on that one. I'm happy with the final closing thought being, make sure your funeral's interesting enough for Vlad and Karl, or Richard and Karl, to attend your funeral, because we ain't going to no boring funerals. I still vote Smash Bros. Tournament, the winner gets your belongings, like...
Ooh. A swag pile of your belongings?
Like, there's just so much more fun ways. Although I still kind of want to get launched into space so I can be used to smash the moon mirror. But yeah. And episode done. Go live your lives. Bye.
Oh, we were still recording?
Yeah, but now we're not.